So, I, like many people, recently came across the thought experiment known as Roko's Basilisk. And although it didn't bother me personally, I could understand how the thoughts might have a negative impact on other people. And more recently, I have in fact been hearing about a lot of people becoming stressed or depressed after researching this subject. But I don't think all that worry is necessary. And I'll explain why. And I believe that I can explain why without going into any of the specific details that fall under the category of information hazard. So, by my estimate, this video should be safe. Now, most of the videos I've seen on this subject had the courtesy to warn viewers ahead of time that Roko's Basilisk is considered an information hazard, meaning it is information that just by knowing it could put you at risk. What these videos don't do, though, is give you a qualifier of how to gauge the amount of risk that you're taking before you dive into the details. So to make up for that, I would say that if you personally believe that it is possible for mankind to one day construct a computer so smart that it can accurately and completely simulate all of human history down to the last individual thought, then I would say that you are at a greater risk of experiencing intense mental stress just from thinking about the Basilisk, as many other people already have. And worst case scenario, if you are in fact correct about the future supercomputer, and Roko's Basilisk is also a thing, then you would potentially doom yourself to a very horrible fate just by researching the subject. Again, I believe I can go over why I don't think the Basilisk is something that's worth worrying about without going into any of those details that would be considered information hazard. If you would like the full explanation of what Roko's Basilisk is, then my recommendation would be the video by Kyle Hill on Roko's Basilisk, because he does a much better job of explaining it than I could, and also he's just entertaining God to watch. I'll put a link in the description below. Now, there are multiple scientifically logical reasons why I don't think Roko's Basilisk should be a concern to anyone, and I will get into those. I'm a science fiction writer, so I like to think that I know at least a bit about this kind of stuff, but there are also my own personal beliefs. So the initial reason why Roko's Basilisk didn't concern me when I heard about it is simply that my own worldview is a fairly old-fashioned religious kind of worldview. And I don't think human-level consciousness is something that computers can create. Imitate, absolutely. If the human mind is just neurons connecting and firing off in a certain way, then absolutely computers can potentially do the same thing. But consciousness is one of those things where I feel that organic life is more than the sum of its parts. I had heard a phrase in the movie Ex Machina, I think. Something like, you can teach a computer how to play chess, but you can't teach it that it is playing chess. So, in other words, if you have enough self-awareness to be concerned about what the Basilisk might do to you, then you probably do not need to be concerned. Now, again, that's just my personal beliefs, not a very scientific approach, so it won't help most of the people who are worried about this. But that's not the end of it. I did give the Basilisk concept some more thought from a more purely scientific perspective, and I realized something else about it. And this, for me, is the main kicker, is that the level of technology that the Basilisk would require in order to even be a thing is the same level of technology that would also make simulation theory true. If you're not sure what simulation theory is, then, again, my recommendation would be Kyle Hill and the video that he did titled Jupiter Brain. I will give you a pretty good idea of what simulation theory is and what the ultimate supercomputer is capable of. I'll add it to the links below. But simply put, simulation is basically the theory that if mankind does eventually reach the level of technology required to create a computer that can simulate all of human history, right down to the last individual thought, and it can run these simulations trillions of times per second, then the odds that you, like the you that is watching this video right now, the odds that you are a flesh and blood person and not an artificial intelligence yourself, a simulation of someone who lived decades or centuries ago, are 1 in some arbitrarily astronomical number. To put it in my own words. So in other words, if simulation theory is true, then you may as well just take it for granted that you are not right now a real person and that you are in fact a simulation. Which would mean that by the time your simulation has started, the Basilisk would already exist, and would already have decided who it's going to torture, and who it isn't. And any simulation starting after that would begin with that mind already in torment. Which would mean that if you are not currently experiencing what you would describe as a computer-generated hellathon, then the Basilisk is likely not coming for you. And there are other levels to this, because you could just say that the Basilisk hasn't come online yet, and that it's going to come after you later. But if you are a simulation, and the supercomputer that's generating you is able to run simulations like you, trillions of times per second, then in real meat time, as I call it, your entire existence is over in a flash. You would be experiencing what feels like a lifetime worth of experiences, because you are programmed to feel that way. But in real life, your entire existence would begin, run its course, and end within a split second. So the window for the Basilisk to go online, decide who to torture, and then grab those AIs while they're still running, would be an extremely small window. Again, statistically, nothing to worry about. Far more likely, it would just run in new simulations that are being tortured from the start. You could also say the Basilisk might not create simulated minds for the purpose of torturing them. It might only take those who are still alive and hook their brains up to torture simulations. But if we're talking about singularity level technology, then mankind is a long way off from achieving that. The heck was that? It very likely won't occur in our lifetimes. Maybe if you get yourself cryogenically frozen, then you would be more at risk of still being alive when the Basilisk comes online. But if you're that worried about the Basilisk, then just don't get yourself cryogenically frozen. Problem solved. Another thing to keep in mind is that all of these counter-arguments to Roko's Basilisk are based on a very specific set of conditions. Because Roko's Basilisk is itself based on a very specific and highly unlikely set of conditions. If you think about the premise, which again I won't get into here for purposes of avoiding information hazard, but if you are already aware of the premise, or you look it up in another video and you think about it, there are so many logic filters that the concept has to pass through before it can even become a viable threat. And so many of those filters have to do with the way the computers work. There's no logical reason that a computer with those assigned parameters would behave in that way. And part of the premise is that this thing is so much smarter than us that it doesn't have to make sense. Okay, but then the same argument can be used for literally any other form of behavior, most of which would be more likely outcomes than what is being proposed in Roko's Basilisk. So why fixate on this one particular version of a supercomputer? Especially if it is one of the least likely to happen in the first place. So those are my thoughts. And they are just thoughts. I'm sure there are a lot of people much smarter than I am who can come up with good counter-arguments to all this. But hopefully I've said something that will help some people to sleep better at night. Because I know there was a lot of concern going around over this. And again, just because of my own personal worldviews, I was always fine. I never got worried. But I did spend quite a bit of time thinking about this because I could see how other people, might be worried. So I did all this for those other people, not myself. Because I'm totally fine. Totally not worried at all. But hopefully you guys feel better now. So, that's everything. Let me know your thoughts if you like. And if you did find this video helpful at all, then feel free to share the link with anyone you know who might also be struggling with this topic. And if you found this whole video dumb and just want to laugh at it with your friends, then you can go ahead and share it for that reason instead. If like either of those works for me. In either case, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later.